Today we're talking about hubs, wheel bearings, cleaning them, greasing them, installing them, and why it's important to check them. Here we have a Willwood 55XD hub. I have already removed everything, cleaned everything up. I'm just going to show you a couple things here that I noticed on removing it. This washer, you can see it's got some marks on it. This is a new one. We're going to take this washer, throw it away, because that's just going to lead to loose bearings and a loose hub. So we want to check our bearings after we cleaned them, make sure they're not delaminating, making sure they're not real dull looking or nothing, make sure there's no extra marks or anything that's not supposed to be in there. And same with the races inside of our hub. We want to make sure that there's no marks and that there's no chatter marks or anything from the bearings getting too much side load. We cleaned up our spacer. The spacer's already been set. I rechecked it and reset it. These spacers are good for side load, but what people don't realize is these aren't maintenance free. You're still going to have to check your hubs. You're still going to have to check your bearings. These are just a tool to help with the side load to keep your bearing inner contact points loaded. But what happens is, as you get side load and these bearings wear out, you start losing your load on these bearings and then your hub becomes loose. We'll talk more about that later. So when I pulled my seal, this tool right here is kind of my go-to tool for pulling the seals out. Get in there, hook it out. You don't damage the hub. You're not in there with a punch and a chisel. And I use a nano ceramic grease on all my bearings. It's just got a little needle. And what you do is you start pumping it in between each roller until it starts coming out like that. And you want to do it all the way around on both bearings. I won't bore you with all that. Once you have the bearings all greased, it should look like that. Just pushing out between every roller. You'll see it like that. So the first thing we're going to do on our reassembly is we're going to take the big bearing. Big bearing always goes on the seal side. Okay. Now we got a seal driver here. We're going to set that in. If there's words on the back of the seal, those always go out. Then we just take a hammer. You'll feel the seal bottom out, and our seal is installed. As you can see, we should be flush all the way around, and you don't want any marks in your seal when you install it. Any marks will end up being resistance on the seal. And this is a good time too, while it's apart, take a look at all your caliper bolts, rotor bolts. Make sure all your safety wires are good. Nothing's broke. Your rotor's all good, the face is all good. All your mounting tabs on your rotor, you don't want any cracks on that, because that's just going to lead to a break later in the night. So now that we got this done, let's go over the car. I'll show you how to put it on. Now we're over here on the car. This is our spindle and our spindle snout. Late model, mod, it don't matter. You're kind of looking all at the same thing. Just a little bit of difference here in the length. You want to look at your bearing surfaces here, and your sealing surface here. You want to make sure that there's no grooves or anything sharp, burrs that you can catch your nail on. If there's any grooves here in the sealing surface, it will let water and dirt in through the seal and into your bearings, and it's going to cause a bearing failure. Now that could be anything from just rolling resistance to the hub itself going out, ruining suspension and possibly other things, let alone results on the track. So after we've looked all this over and made sure this is all good, we want to take our hub and install our hub on here. And then we're going to take our spacer, big end in, and our small bearing, and slide that all together. Then we're going to take the tang washer that we had talked about before, and we're going to slide that tang washer in. That separates the nut from the bearing. And here's our nut. We want to make sure that our nut, that the threads aren't galled or smashed in any ways. You want to watch it when if you're rubbing your finger around here. These aluminum nuts, when they start to wear down, they get sharp edges on them. This nut all looks good, so we're going to put him on. We're going to take our socket, we're going to tighten them down as tight as you'll go there. We're going to spin them a couple times just by hand, and then I'm going to grab a wrench and I'm actually going to tighten him up more. You can get the actual socket that they make for these. This is actually the same size. I just happen to have this from working on the semi stuff. And 3/4 ton Dodge is the same size. So I'm going to take him and I'm going to tighten him down to where you can feel rolling resistance here. We got our spacer in here, so we can actually keep tightening him down. As long as our spacer is set right, we're not tightening the bearings anymore. We're tightening the nut. We're smashing the bearings between that and the nut. So that's all that's tightening. It's not tightening your bearings at all. You still got good free roll. So now we're going to take our lock plate, and you want to inspect your lock plate. You want to make sure that the tang ain't broke off, and that your where your screws go through, they're not ready to pull through. If it has a little bit of a wave to it like this, that's not that big of a deal. So now you want to look at it, see we got our holes covered here. So these washers, you can actually take them off. Well, some people can, I can't right now. And you flip it over, and now you can see that we're in the windows. So here's our 2 screws. And what I like to do is take this blue Loctite, and I'm just going to put a dab on each screw before I put it in, to help hold this whole assembly from coming loose. Just a little dab on each one should take care of it. Then we'll take our Allen wrench and we will run these in. Now you want them good and snug. Over tight and loose are the same thing. When you over tighten it, you stretch it and you can break them. Just good and tight like that. We'll take our cap, we'll make sure our O-ring's all nice and clean. We'll snap him on. Now, for checking the hubs, this is something that needs to be done after every race. This is a floating rotor, so it's going to make noise. Cars without a floating rotor, mods, normal hubs, normal Starlight 55s instead of the XDs are a solid rotor. You can take the rotor and go to move it like this. If the hub moves at all, you know that the hub bearings are getting loose. There's no movement in this hub right now. as far as clocking it this way, or pulling in and out. What happens is when you start getting some movement like this, especially on a rear hub with a drive plate, that movement up and down starts wearing the splines out. And once you get wearing the splines out, it's easy to strip them out, and then you end up ruining the drive plate and possibly the axle shaft itself. Another thing that we want to look at is make sure that our wheel mounting surfaces are all nice and clean, smooth, to keep that wheel on there, so that way we're not ruining wheels or ruining hubs. So that's kind of an overview on how to clean, grease, and reassemble and install in the car. Front and rear hubs are the same as far as installation process. So yeah, if you guys like this video, give me a like and a subscribe. I'm going to put the links in the description below for the grease and a couple other things that I used on this. If you guys don't have that stuff, get it. This is a weekly thing for me, is checking these hubs. You know, on a right side hub, I might take and grease it every 5 nights. On a left side hub, especially like a left front, it's a 10-night thing. When I do my ball joint check, tear them apart, clean them up and grease them, I'll do the left front hub. That's every 10 nights. So thanks for watching, guys. Please share it.